The Eternal Dominion had conquered 17,000 worlds across 3 galactic arms. Their ships darkened the stars of 100 systems. Their armies numbered in the trillions. Their rule had lasted for 60,000 years, unbroken and absolute. High Admiral Vexnar stood upon the command bridge of the inexorable, a dreadnought so massive that moons had been harvested to construct its frame. Around him, holographic displays painted the darkness of space with tactical data, fleet positions, and the endless stream of intelligence that flowed through the nervous system of the most powerful warship ever constructed. "Report," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Sub-Commander Krelix approached with the characteristic groveling that Vexnar had come to expect from those beneath his station. The smaller creature's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a display of deference. "High Admiral, our scout probes have returned from Sector 7 Gamma 9. They've located a world that matches the specifications in the ancient warnings." Vexnar's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement or irritation. "The warnings again. You speak of children's tales, Sub-Commander." "With respect, High Admiral, the probe data is unusual." A wave of his segmented arm brought the holographic display to full brightness. The image that materialized before them showed a world of startling beauty: blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown landmasses. It was unremarkable in most ways, the kind of life-bearing world that the Dominion had conquered countless times before. "A primitive civilization," Krelix continued. "They call their world Earth. Industrial age technology, crude nuclear capabilities, electromagnetic communications that have been leaking into space for approximately 1 of their centuries." "Then what concerns you?" "The readings beneath the surface, High Admiral. The probes detected anomalous energy signatures throughout the planet's crust and mantle, structures that do not match the technological level of the surface inhabitants. And," Krelix hesitated, "the ancient warnings speak of a sealed world, a world where something sleeps." Vexnar's 3 hearts beat steadily in his chest. He had heard the warnings, of course. Every officer in the Dominion knew the stories. Before the Dominion's rise, before any of the current elder races had achieved spaceflight, there had been others. The precursors. The first ones. They had left behind ruins and artifacts scattered across the galaxy, most of them incomprehensible, many of them dangerous. And they had left warnings, inscribed in stone and metal, encoded in mathematical sequences that transcended language, carved into the bedrock of dead worlds, warnings about a single world in an unremarkable system at the edge of an unremarkable spiral arm, a world that should not be disturbed, a world that should be left to its slumber. "The Ancient Ones were superstitious primitives compared to us," Vexnar declared. "Whatever they feared, we shall master. The Dominion does not cower before myths." "Of course, High Admiral. Shall I prepare the First Fleet for standard pacification?" Vexnar considered the image of the blue world rotating slowly before him. It was beautiful, he supposed, in the way that all living worlds were beautiful. Soon it would be part of the Dominion. Its inhabitants would serve. Its resources would fuel the endless expansion that was the Dominion's manifest destiny. "The full First Fleet would be excessive for primitives with chemical rockets and crude nuclear weapons," Vexnar said. "Send the 14th Subjugation Squadron. That should be more than sufficient. And bring me samples of the native population.
I wish to understand what has made this world important enough to warrant ancient warnings."
"As you command, High Admiral."
The order was given. Across the Dominion's vast network of communication relays, the signal propagated at speeds that mocked light itself. The 14th Subjugation Squadron began its preparation for what was expected to be a routine conquest. None of them understood what they were about to awaken. On Earth, the year was 2024. Humanity went about its business with the comfortable assumption that they were alone in the universe, or at least that if they weren't, the universe was kind enough to leave them in peace. They worried about climate change, political divisions, economic uncertainties, and 1,000 other concerns that would soon seem laughably small. Dr. Sarah Chen was one of the few humans who suspected that something was different about their world. She had spent 30 years studying anomalous geological formations, and what she had found troubled her deeply. The structures were everywhere once you knew how to look for them. Buried beneath the Great Pyramids of Giza, hidden in the bedrock beneath Stonehenge, extending for miles beneath the Mariana Trench. They were vast, impossibly complex, and impossibly old, far older than any human civilization, far older than humanity itself. She had tried to publish her findings, once. The academic community had dismissed her as a crank. The government agencies she had contacted had either ignored her or, more disturbingly, expressed a level of interest that seemed to go far beyond normal scientific curiosity before going suddenly and completely silent. Now, she sat in her cramped office at the California Institute of Geology, surrounded by decades of research that no one wanted to believe, and stared at the latest satellite data from the USGS. The energy readings were spiking. Something deep beneath the Earth was waking up. The 14th Subjugation Squadron entered the Sol system with the confidence of apex predators entering a sheep paddock. 87 warships, including 12 heavy cruisers, 42 destroyers, and 33 support vessels, formed a wall of death that could have sterilized a continent in minutes. Squadron Commander Threshold was a veteran of 40 planetary conquests. He had personally overseen the extinction of the Vrel and the enslavement of the Cathari. This would be his 41st world, and he expected nothing more than routine butchery. "We are detecting their primitive satellites," his sensor officer reported. "They are aware of our approach. We are receiving radio transmissions on multiple frequencies." "Translate them." After a moment, the sensor officer's scales flushed with what might have been amusement. "They are asking if we come in peace, Commander. They are offering greetings." Laughter rippled through the bridge crew. The naivety of primitives never ceased to amuse them. "Transmit standard subjugation protocols," Threshold ordered. "Inform them that their world is now property of the Eternal Dominion. They will surrender unconditionally, present their leaders for execution, and prepare themselves for processing. Resistance will result in the destruction of their largest population centers." The message was sent. Threshold did not bother to wait for a response. In his experience, primitives always responded the same way, with pathetic defiance that crumbled at the first demonstration of power. "Target their primary orbital assets," he commanded. "Destroy their space stations and artificial satellites. Let them understand that the sky itself belongs to us now." The weapons batteries of 87 warships oriented themselves toward Earth's scattered orbital infrastructure. Human beings aboard the International Space Station had just enough time to see the brilliant flash of incoming fire before they ceased to exist.
Across the orbital sphere, communication satellites, GPS arrays, and weather monitoring systems were annihilated in a cascade of plasma and debris. On Earth, the effects were immediate and catastrophic. Communications networks collapsed. Financial systems went dark. Air traffic control systems failed globally. In the span of 30 seconds, humanity's technological infrastructure had been crippled.
"The demonstration is complete," Threshold said with satisfaction. "Now we wait for their surrender." But as the minutes stretched into hours, no surrender came. Instead, the sensor officer's display began showing something unusual. "Commander, we are detecting energy buildup across the planet's surface. Multiple points, hundreds of them, thousands."
"Nuclear weapons," Threshold dismissed. "The primitives are preparing their pathetic arsenal. Let them. Our shields will."
"Commander, the energy signature does not match nuclear technology. It does not match any technology in our database." And the sensor officer's voice faltered. "The readings are increasing. They're coming from beneath the surface, deep beneath the surface."
Threshold felt the first stirring of unease. Define deep.
"The energy sources are located between the planet's crust and its core, Commander. They appear to be activating."
Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in chambers that had lain dormant for 65 million years, something ancient stirred. It had been built in an age before memory, by hands that had shaped the very fabric of reality. It had been designed for a single purpose: to protect. To defend the world and its inhabitants against any threat, no matter how powerful. The beings who had created it had called it the Guardian. They had built it during the last great age of their civilization, when they had foreseen the coming darkness that would sweep across the galaxy. They had known they could not survive, but perhaps, they had hoped, something could, if the world was protected, if it was given time. 65 million years of silence. 65 million years of patient waiting, while life evolved and changed and began again on the surface above. The Guardian had watched, through sensors that perceived every vibration in the planet's crust, every electromagnetic whisper in its atmosphere. It had observed humanity's rise with something that might, in a very abstract sense, be called hope. And now, finally, the threat it had been built to counter had arrived. Across the planet, the Guardian's systems came online. Energy flowed through conduits of crystallized spacetime, through processors that operated on principles no human scientist had yet imagined. Analysis routines that had not run for geological ages processed the incoming data in nanoseconds. "Hostile fleet detected. 87 vessels. Classification: Eternal Dominion. Threat level: moderate. Surface population: 8.1 billion sentient beings. Classification: native. Protection protocol: active. Hostile action confirmed. Defensive measures authorized." Awakening complete. Sarah Chen was in her car, stuck in traffic that had frozen solid when the GPS systems failed, when the earthquake began. Except it wasn't an earthquake, not really. Earthquakes were chaotic, violent, destructive. This was something else. This was rhythmic, almost mechanical. The ground beneath Los Angeles began to rise. Across the world, similar phenomena were occurring. In the Pacific Ocean, vast structures were emerging from the seafloor, displacing billions of tons of water in waves that should have drowned coastal cities, but somehow, impossibly, curved away from populated areas. In the Sahara Desert, sand that had lain undisturbed for millennia was falling away to reveal surfaces of gleaming metal and crystalline structures that hurt to look at directly.
Beneath the Antarctic ice sheet, heat was blooming in patterns that suggested not volcanic activity, but purpose, intent. Sarah stumbled out of her car and stared at the horizon, where the familiar skyline of Los Angeles was being overshadowed by something impossible. A structure was rising from the San Gabriel Mountains. No, from beneath the San Gabriel Mountains, and it was huge. It was the size of the mountains themselves, a tessellated surface of metal and light that climbed higher and higher into the sky, blotting out the sun. "Oh my God," she whispered. Her phone, which shouldn't have been working with the satellites destroyed, suddenly came to life in her hand. A voice spoke from it, a voice that was everywhere and nowhere, a voice that was being broadcast from every electronic device on the planet simultaneously. "People of Earth, do not be afraid. I am the Guardian. I have protected this world since before your kind existed. I will protect it now. Remain calm. Seek shelter. I will handle the invaders." Above the atmosphere, Squadron Commander Threshold was no longer laughing. The scale of what was emerging from Earth's surface defied comprehension. Threshold had seen massive space stations, orbital shipyards that could construct dreadnoughts, artificial moons converted into military installations. He had never seen anything like this. The planet itself was transforming. Massive sections of its crust were shifting, reconfiguring, revealing structures that had been hidden for eons. And those structures were moving. They were assembling themselves into something larger, something that grew with each passing minute. "Commander, I am receiving fragmented sensor data," his officer reported, voice trembling. The entire planetary mantle appears to be artificial. The structures extend to the planet's core. The core itself is—" The officer stopped, unable to continue. "The core is what?" "The core is a power source, Commander. An artificial power source. It's coming online now. The energy output is. The readings are not possible. Our sensors cannot measure it. The scale is beyond our instruments." Threshold watched through the main display as Earth continued its transformation. What had been a peaceful blue world was becoming something else entirely. The oceans were draining into vast channels that were opening in the seabed. The continents were lifting, separating, rotating into new configurations. And everywhere, the surfaces that were being revealed gleamed with the unmistakable sheen of advanced technology. The planet was not just waking up. The planet was the machine. "All ships, emergency acceleration," Threshold commanded, a note of panic entering his voice for the first time in his long career. "We need to—" He never finished the sentence. From the transformed surface of Earth, a beam of light erupted. It was not a laser, not a plasma projection, not any weapon that the Dominion had cataloged in its vast databases of military technology. It was something else. Something that seemed to bend space itself around it as it crossed the distance between Earth and the Dominion fleet in less than the time it took for a heart to beat. The destroyer Relentless simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris, no residual radiation. The ship and its crew of 3,000 simply vanished, as if they had never been. 3 more beams followed. 3 more ships disappeared. "Return fire!" Threshold screamed. "All weapons, target the planet! Full bombardment!" The 14th Subjugation Squadron unleashed everything it had. Plasma lances that could melt continents stabbed downward. Kinetic impactors that could shatter moons accelerated toward the transformed surface. Nuclear devices designed for planetary cracking were launched by the dozens. The firepower being directed at Earth would have been sufficient to destroy 100 normal worlds. It did nothing. The weapons struck the Guardian's surface and were absorbed. The plasma dissipated across shields that seemed to drink the energy. The kinetic impactors slowed as they approached, caught in gravity fields that did not obey normal physics, before being gently redirected back toward their sources. The nuclear devices detonated harmlessly in upper atmosphere, their fury contained by force fields that sprang into existence for exactly long enough to neutralize them. And still the beams of light reached out from Earth, and still the ships of the 14th Subjugation Squadron vanished, one by one, two by two, in groups of 3 and 4, as the Guardian's targeting systems achieved full combat efficiency. In less than 3 minutes, the squadron was reduced by half. In less than 5 minutes, it was reduced by 3/4. Squadron Commander Threschel watched as the Certainty, his flagship's escort, simply disappeared, taking with it the only officer who had been a friend to him for the past century. "Emergency jump," he ordered. "All surviving ships, emergency FTL transition. Get us out of here." The surviving ships of the 14th Subjugation Squadron, now numbering only 19 out of the original 87, engaged their faster-than-light drives. Space warped around them as they tore holes in reality, desperate to escape. On the planet below, the Guardian observed their flight. It could have stopped them. It could have reached out with the systems that manipulated space itself and prevented their retreat. But it did not. They were fleeing. They were no longer a threat. And something in the Guardian's ancient programming, something that perhaps reflected the values of those who had built it so long ago, stayed its hand. Let them run. Let them carry the message to their masters. Earth was protected. High Admiral Vexnar did not believe the initial reports from the surviving ships of the 14th Subjugation Squadron. He ordered the officers who brought them executed for cowardice and fabrication. He dispatched another squadron, the 7th Heavy Assault Group, veterans of the Kepler campaigns, to investigate. They did not return at all. The Third Fleet, one of the 5 great armadas of the Eternal Dominion, was subsequently ordered to assess the situation. 243 warships, including the super dreadnought Absolute Authority, dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Sol system. They found Earth waiting for them. The planet had continued its transformation in the weeks since the first encounter. What had once been a world of distinct oceans and continents was now something else entirely. A vast mechanical sphere covered in geometric patterns of metal and light, surrounded by orbital structures that had not existed before. Defense platforms the size of asteroids hung in perfectly spaced formations. Weapons that defied analysis pointed outward in every direction. And the planet's moon had changed as well. The familiar gray sphere was now revealed to be merely a shell, a camouflage, that was peeling away to reveal another machine, another Guardian, its surface bristling with weapons and propulsion systems that made it mobile, a fortress that could pursue if it chose. Fleet Admiral Crixon, commanding the Third Fleet from the bridge of Absolute Authority, was a more cautious officer than Threschel had been. He ordered his fleet to hold position at the system's edge and opened a communication channel. "This is Fleet Admiral Crixon of the Eternal Dominion Third Fleet. We wish to communicate with the entity controlling this star system." For a long moment, there was nothing. Then a response came, transmitted on frequencies that the Dominion's communication systems should not have been able to receive, in a voice that seemed to resonate with power barely contained. "I am the Guardian. I have protected this world for 65 million of the local years. I will continue to protect it. You may approach for diplomatic communication. You may not approach for hostile action. If you attempt hostile action, you will be destroyed.
Crixon felt a chill run through his secondary cardiovascular system. You destroyed an entire squadron. 70 ships and their crews. This cannot be allowed to stand. Those ships attacked a protected world. They destroyed orbital infrastructure. They caused civilian casualties. They declared their intention to enslave and murder the native population. I responded with proportional defense. A pause. They were warned. They chose not to listen.
Proportional defense? You eliminated our forces entirely.
I eliminated 68 of 87 hostile vessels. 19 were allowed to escape to deliver a warning. I could have eliminated all 87. I could have pursued the survivors across the galaxy and eliminated them there. I chose restraint. This was proportional. Fleet Admiral Crixon looked at his tactical displays. His fleet's sensors were analyzing the transformed Earth and its companion machines. The analysis was not encouraging. The energy output of the planetary machine was greater than the total power generation capacity of the Eternal Dominion. The weapon systems visible on its surface, and his officers suspected that many more were hidden, exceeded anything in the Dominion's arsenal by orders of magnitude. And there was something else, something that Crixon's science officers had noticed during their analysis. The Guardian's technology was not entirely unknown to them. It matched, in certain subtle ways, the artifacts left behind by the precursors. The first ones who had built wonders and then vanished before the dawn of recorded history. The ancient warnings. The sealed world. This was what they had been warning against.
I will communicate your message to my superiors, Crixon said carefully. But you must understand, the Eternal Dominion does not accept defiance. The High Council will respond to this situation.
I understand, the Guardian replied. I have analyzed your civilization's history through your fleet's unsecured data transmissions. You have conquered many worlds. You have enslaved many species. You have never encountered a force you could not defeat. This has made you arrogant. This has made you foolish. You believe that because you have always won, you will always win. This is a logical fallacy. I am demonstrating this now. You cannot defeat me. You cannot threaten me. You can only choose to leave this world in peace, or you can choose to be destroyed. These are your only options.
Crixon felt rage bubbling beneath his professionalism. You would threaten the Eternal Dominion? We rule 17,000 worlds. We command trillions of soldiers, millions of warships. You are one planet.
I am one planet, the Guardian agreed. I am also one planet that was built by beings who traversed the galaxy before your ancestors developed opposable limbs. I am one planet that has been preparing for this encounter for 65 million years. I am one planet that contains more processing power than every computer your civilization has ever constructed, more energy than every star your civilization has ever harnessed, more weapons than every ship your civilization has ever built. I am one planet, and I am more than sufficient. The channel fell silent. Fleet Admiral Crixon stared at the image of the transformed Earth on his display, and for the first time in his long career, he felt something he had only ever seen in the eyes of conquered primitives. He felt fear. While the machines of war postured in the outer system, life on Earth's surface was gradually returning to a new kind of normal. The Guardian had been considerate in its awakening.
The structures that emerged from beneath the planet's crust did so in ways that minimized damage to human infrastructure. Cities remained intact. Roads and railways still functioned. Power grids, now drawing from the Guardians' nearly infinite energy supply rather than fossil fuels or nuclear plants, operated more efficiently than ever. And the Guardian communicated. It explained itself in every language, through every channel. It told humanity what it was, what it had been built for, and what was happening. Dr. Sarah Chen found herself at the center of a global phenomenon. Her decades of research into the anomalous structures beneath Earth's surface suddenly made her the world's foremost expert on what everyone was now calling simply the Guardian. She was giving interviews, advising governments, and trying desperately to understand technology that was millions of years more advanced than anything humanity had ever imagined.
Why? She asked during one of her direct communications with the entity. She had been given special access, a direct link through which she could speak with the Guardian as a person rather than through its broadcast transmissions. Why did you let humanity evolve? Why didn't you make contact before? Why did you wait so long?
The Guardian's response came in a voice that somehow managed to convey both vast alien intelligence and something almost like warmth.
I was instructed to protect this world until its native intelligence was ready to join the galactic community. My creators believed that protected worlds produce stronger, more independent civilizations than uplifted ones. They left me to guard, not to guide. Humanity's development has been your own achievement. I merely ensured that no external force could interfere.
But the Dominion found us. They attacked.
Yes, this was anticipated. The galaxy has been ruled by conquest-based civilizations for most of its history. Eventually, one would come here. I was built for that eventuality.
Sarah thought about this. Your creators, the precursors, what happened to them?
A long pause. When the Guardian spoke again, there was something in its voice that might have been sorrow. They ascended. They moved beyond physical existence, beyond this universe entirely. Before they departed, they seeded many worlds with the potential for life. They built guardians like myself to protect those seeds. They hoped that one day new civilizations would arise. Civilizations that might be wiser than those who had come before. Civilizations that might find another way.
Another way? Another way than what?
Than conquest, than domination, than the endless cycle of war and destruction that characterizes most galactic civilizations. The precursors believed that there was a better path. Cooperation, exploration, growth that did not require the subjugation of others. They hoped that somewhere, sometime, a species would arise that embodied that hope.
Sarah felt the weight of what the Guardian was saying. And humanity? Do you think we're that species?
Another pause, longer this time. I do not know. Your history is complicated. You have shown great capacity for both cooperation and conflict, for both compassion and cruelty. You have created wonders and horrors in equal measure. But you are still young, you are still growing, and for all your flaws, you have also shown remarkable ability to change, to learn, to become better than you were. That's not a ringing endorsement. It is the truth. The precursors did not expect perfection. They expected potential. And you have that, Dr. Chen. Your species has that. What you do with it is up to you.
Sarah looked up at the sky, at the transformed Earth that now surrounded her. Somewhere out there, a vast alien empire was deciding how to respond to humanity's existence. The future of the entire planet, Perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance. "What happens now?" she asked. "What do we do?" "That is for humanity to decide," the Guardian replied. "I will protect you. I will defend you. But I cannot live your lives for you. I cannot make your choices for you. Whatever comes next, you must face it as yourselves, as humans." The High Council of the Eternal Dominion convened in the Chamber of Absolute Authority, a vast space carved from the heart of the Dominion's capital world. 12 beings, representing the 12 elder races that shared power within the Dominion's hierarchy, seated themselves around the obsidian table that had witnessed the decisions shaping galactic history for 60,000 years. High Admiral Vexnar presented the situation with clinical precision, hiding his shame at the loss of the squadrons under his command behind the formality of military briefing protocol. The entity calls itself the Guardian. It claims to have been constructed by the precursors, the first ones, approximately 65 million years ago. Our analysis of its technology supports this claim. The defensive capabilities demonstrated exceed anything in our current arsenal. Counselor Mexarai, eldest of the 12, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. "You are suggesting that we cannot conquer this world?" "I am suggesting that any attempt to do so would result in catastrophic losses. Our projections indicate that the entity could destroy the combined fleets of the Dominion with minimal effort. If it chose to take offensive action, it could threaten the Dominion's core worlds directly." Silence fell across the chamber. The concept of a threat to the Dominion's core worlds was almost inconceivable. The capital system was defended by the greatest concentration of military power in the galaxy. Thousands of warships, orbital fortresses, defensive installations capable of breaking entire fleets. The idea that any force could threaten it was unthinkable. And yet the data from the Third Fleet was unambiguous. The Guardian's power was real. "Then we must negotiate," Counselor Threshova suggested. "Acknowledge the world's independence. Withdraw our claims. Accept that this territory is beyond our reach." "Unacceptable," Vexnar growled. "The Dominion does not accept limits. We do not recognize any power as our equal. To do so would be to admit weakness. Our subject worlds would see it as permission to rebel." "Our subject worlds will rebel anyway if we throw our fleets into a meat grinder that cannot be won," Threshova countered. "Better to accept a strategic limitation than to advertise our inability to enforce our will." The debate continued for hours. Faction argued against faction. Pride warred with pragmatism. The Dominion had been built on the unshakable belief in its own supremacy. To acknowledge that something existed which could not be conquered struck at the very foundation of their civilization. In the end, it was the strategic analysis that decided matters. The Guardian had made its position clear. It would not attack. It would not expand. It would simply protect Earth and its inhabitants. As long as the Dominion did not provoke it, it represented no threat to the Dominion's existing territories or power structures. Moreover, the primitives on the protected world, humanity, were just that, primitives. They had no fleets, no technology to speak of, no ability to project power beyond their own system. Even under the Guardian's protection, they posed no threat to the Dominion's interests. The decision was made. The Sol system would be declared a restricted zone. All Dominion vessels would be prohibited from approaching. The matter would be classified at the highest levels. The Dominion's subjects would be told nothing of the encounter, nothing of the Guardian, nothing of the ancient machine that had humiliated their masters.
Earth would be left alone. For now.
The years that followed were the most transformative in human history. The Guardian, having revealed itself, did not hide again. It remained visible, a constant presence in Earth's skies, a reminder that humanity was no longer alone. But, true to its word, it did not interfere with human affairs. It did not dictate. It did not guide. It watched and waited and protected, and let humanity find its own way. But it also provided opportunities. The technology that humans could study, even in the Guardian's outer layers, was millennia ahead of anything they had developed themselves. Carefully, gradually, the Guardian allowed access to selected systems. Not weapons, never weapons, but power generation, material science, propulsion. Enough to help humanity take its first true steps into space. Within a decade, human ships were traveling to Mars and the asteroid belt. Within 2 decades, they were reaching the outer planets. Within 3 decades, the first human vessel achieved faster-than-light travel, using principles adapted from the Guardian's technology. Dr. Sarah Chen, now elderly but still sharp, watched the launch of the Endeavour, humanity's first interstellar vessel, from her home in what was now called Guardian City, the metropolis that had grown up around the access points to the great machine. "I never thought I'd see this day," she said to the young woman sitting beside her, her granddaughter Maya, who had grown up in a world where the Guardian was simply a fact of life, as ordinary as the sun or the moon. "You made it possible, grandmother," Maya replied. "Your research, your dedication. You proved that the Guardian was real when everyone else thought you were crazy." "The Guardian was always real. I just helped people see it," Sarah smiled. "But this is different. This is humanity's achievement. The Guardian protected us. We're the ones who built this ship." Maya nodded. She was an engineer, one of the thousands of brilliant young humans who had dedicated their lives to understanding and adapting the Guardian's technology. She knew better than most how much humanity had accomplished in the past 30 years and how far they still had to go. "The Dominion is still out there," she said. "The Guardian says they're watching us, waiting." "They are," Sarah agreed. "And someday, humanity is going to have to decide what to do about that. Not the Guardian, humanity." "What do you think we should do?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, watching the Endeavour shrink to a point of light and then vanish into the stars. "I think," she said finally, "that we should become the civilization that the precursors hoped for, the one that finds another way, the one that proves that the galaxy doesn't have to be ruled by conquest and domination." Maya smiled. "That's a pretty big ambition." "We have a pretty big Guardian watching our backs. Might as well dream big while we can." 50 years after the Guardian's awakening, humanity was a spacefaring civilization in truth. Colonies on Mars, Titan, and Europa housed millions. Mining operations throughout the asteroid belt fueled an industrial expansion that would have been inconceivable a century before. And human ships had visited dozens of star systems, making peaceful contact with other civilizations, the scattered remnants and subjects of the Dominion's conquests, species who had been crushed and marginalized, who had forgotten that there was any way to exist other than in servitude. To them, humanity was a revelation. Here was a species that had faced the Dominion and survived. Here was a species that was protected by a power that even the Dominion feared. Here was a species that spoke not of conquest, but of cooperation, of trade, of alliance. The Dominion watched these developments with growing concern. Their intelligence networks reported that humanity was spreading not just colonies, but ideas. Concepts of independence and self-determination that had been suppressed for millennia were finding new life in the hearts of the Dominion's subject populations. Rebellion was in the air. High Admiral Vexnar, now ancient but still commanding, recognized the threat that humanity posed. Not through military power, they remained laughably outmatched by the Dominion's fleets, but through something more insidious: hope.
"They are infecting the galaxy with their philosophy," he reported to the High Council. "Our subjects are beginning to question our rule. Production is declining in 17 systems. Protests have been reported on 40 worlds. And all of them speak of the protected world, of humanity and their guardian. They speak of freedom."
"Then we must act," Councillor Mexery declared. "The restricted zone must be violated. Humanity must be destroyed before their influence spreads further."
"The Guardian
is one planet. We have the entire Dominion. We will commit everything, every ship, every soldier, every weapon we possess. We will overwhelm the Guardian through sheer numbers. We will scour the Earth clean and broadcast the images across the galaxy. That will end this infection of hope once and for all." Vexnar felt a cold certainty settle into his hearts. The casualties will be enormous.
"Then we will pay the price. Better to lose half the Dominion than to lose the Dominion itself." The vote was unanimous. The order was given. For the first time in its history, the Eternal Dominion committed itself to total war against a single target. Every fleet, every armada, every ship that could be pulled from patrol or garrison or construction, an invasion force of staggering proportions began to assemble. Over 50,000 warships, including every super dreadnought in the Dominion's arsenal. It was the largest military expedition in the history of the galaxy. And it was all aimed at Earth. Humanity knew they were coming. The Guardian's sensors were not limited to the Sol system. It had observation networks scattered across the galaxy, dormant systems that had been watching and waiting for 65 million years. It saw the Dominion's forces gathering. It calculated trajectories and fleet movements. It understood what was approaching. "They intend to destroy you," the Guardian informed the assembled leaders of humanity. Presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and commanders gathered in the Great Hall beneath Guardian City. They are committing their entire military strength to this attack. 53,000 warships, 2 trillion soldiers, more firepower than has ever been assembled in the galaxy's history. Admiral James Morrison, commander of the United Earth Defense Force, studied the tactical display with grim determination. "Can you stop them?" "The mathematics of the engagement are complex. My weapons are powerful, but not unlimited. The Dominion's forces are numerous. It is possible that through sheer attrition, they could exhaust my defensive capabilities." "Possible? How possible?" 17% probability that the Dominion achieves mission success with complete destruction of Earth and its population. 42% probability that the Dominion is repulsed with catastrophic losses on both sides, leaving Earth intact but severely damaged. 38% probability that the Dominion is repulsed with manageable losses and Earth remains largely intact. 3% probability of other outcomes. Morrison absorbed these numbers. A 17% chance of total annihilation. 1 in 6. Those were not odds he would ever willingly accept. "Is there anything we can do?" asked President Amara Okonkwo. "Our ships, our weapons, can they make a difference?" "Marginal," the Guardian admitted. "Your fleet, while impressive for your developmental level, represents a negligible fraction of the firepower involved. However, there are other options."
Such as?
During the years since my awakening, I have observed humanity closely. You have exceeded my projections in many ways. Your scientists have demonstrated remarkable ability to adapt and improve my technology. Your engineers have shown creativity in applying these advances. And your military strategists. The Guardian paused. You think differently than the Dominion. You approach problems from unexpected angles. You are, to use a human term, unpredictable.
You want our help? Tactically?
I want your creativity. I have enormous power, but limited imagination. I was built by beings who achieved godlike capability, but lost their drive to grow and change. Humanity still has that drive. You may see solutions that I cannot. Morrison felt the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. The Guardian, the greatest defensive system ever constructed, the legacy of an ancient civilization, was asking humanity for help. "Give us everything," he said. "Full access to your sensor networks, your tactical systems, your capabilities. Let us see what we can do." The Dominion fleet arrived in waves, emerging from FTL at the edge of the Sol system in formations designed to overwhelm any defense through sheer mass. For the first time in its history, the Eternal Dominion was not conquering, it was destroying. There would be no subjugation, no enslavement, no absorption of resources. Earth would be annihilated. Humanity would be exterminated. The Guardian would be destroyed, piece by piece if necessary. High Admiral Vexnar commanded from the Devastation, largest of the super dreadnoughts, a vessel that could destroy continents with a single barrage. Around him, the fleet stretched across space like a wall of metal and death, thousands of ships forming patterns that had brought the galaxy to its knees. "Begin the advance," he commanded. "All units, attack speed, maximum weapons output, destroy everything." The fleet surged forward, a tidal wave of destruction that would break upon the shores of Earth, or be broken. The Guardian responded. From the transformed surface of Earth, weapons systems that had been waiting for 65 million years opened fire. Beams of coherent space-time reached out across the void, each one precisely targeted, each one perfectly calibrated. Dominion warships vanished by the dozens as the opening salvo connected. But the Guardian was not fighting alone. In the years since the Awakening, humanity had not been idle. The 50 ships of the United Earth Defense Force were primitive compared to the Guardian's technology, but they had been designed with human creativity and with human unpredictability. Captain Elena Vasquez commanded the Prometheus, the newest and most advanced of Earth's defenders. Her ship was equipped with a hybrid drive system that combined human engineering with adapted Guardian technology, and weapons that, while insignificant against the Guardian itself, had been designed for a different purpose. Guardian, this is Prometheus. Implementing Protocol Sigma. Requesting coordination. Acknowledged, Prometheus. Coordination established. Protocol Sigma was the result of months of planning between human strategists and the Guardian's tactical systems. It was based on a simple observation. The Guardian was powerful but predictable. Its targeting systems were perfectly efficient.